Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 366 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we got the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How's it going today, Richard?
Hey, Seth. So many spoilers. After weeks of talking about random stuff, Wizards decided to reveal the entire set to us. Not quite, but a lot of cards.
Oh yeah, we got spoilers for days to talk about, and that's gonna be a big part of the cast. But there's some other news we got to get to too. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before we get to that, we got another co-host in Krim. How's it going this morning, Krim?
Oh, dude. I mean, okay, so this is. Oh, there's a lot of spoilers, yeah. But normally that sounds tiring and whatnot, and oh man, lots of spoilers. But dude, this set, Neon Dynasty, is looking amazing.
It is. It looks really, really sweet. It's looking powerful and it's really unique. And I'm more hyped for it now than when I heard we were going back to Kamigawa. Because I'm not a huge Kamigawa fanboy or whatever. I think of Kamigawa as this really parasitic, underpowered set, and not for its awesome flavor. But they've won me over with the spoilers we've seen so far for sure. But that's one of our big topics for today. We actually have two big topics. One is we got a big B&R announcement a few days ago, changing multiple formats. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to spend the rest of the cast talking about sweet new Kamigawa cards, maybe get to a fish mail or two at the end of the cast. So that's the overview of the cast for today. Before we jump into it, a reminder that our show today is brought to you by Card Conduit, and we've been telling you about Card Conduit, a great way to sell your Magic collection for quite a while now, and they have their curated shipment service, which lets you sell valuable cards with a reduced service fee. As long as your cards have a retail value of $2 or more, you can send in as many as you want and still only pay a 5% fee. And like with all of Card Conduit services, you don't got to sort your cards, you don't got to grade your cards. You get to skip all those hassles and just safely package up your cards and ship them out, and you'll get a detailed report with all the results. So you can check out Card Conduit's curated shipment option as a way to buy list cards with fast processing, optimized prices, and the low service fee of just 5%. And you can even get another 10% off by going to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thanks so much to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And let's talk some B&R announcements. So Richard, Tuesday, we got a B&R announcement changing multiple formats. What actually was on the announcement?
All right. Standard bannings. Alrund's Epiphany, Divide by Zero, Faceless Haven. Those three are banned from Standard. On the Legacy front, Monkey is gone. Ragavan Nimble Pilferer is banned in Legacy. Historic Memory Lapse is banned, but it was previously suspended, so no change really there. Teferi Time Raveler has been rebalanced and unbanned. So Teferi's back in action. In terms of Alchemy, they buffed a whole bunch of cards, and then they nerfed a whole bunch of cards. So that affects Alchemy and Historic. It's just notable that of the cards they buffed, you have random commons and uncommons from the Venture archetype. They're just trying to revive that thing. And Teferi was nerfed, Hullbreak Horror was nerfed, Divide by Zero was nerfed, Lear was nerfed. So you can check out the full list on the website, but a lot of Alchemy rebalances thrown in here as well.
So let's start with Standard. I think that's the easiest place to start. Also, it's kind of funny that we spent most of last week's cast talking about modern bannings, and then they just changed modern. No sagas, no monkeys, none of the things we were talking about actually happened. But they did hit Standard pretty hard. Epiphany's gone, Divide by Zero gone, Faceless Haven gone, which kind of chops the legs out of essentially the whole top tier of the meta. Hitting Epiphany Divide by Zero hits the Epiphany deck, hits Is It Control, other control decks with Divide by Zero. Faceless Haven hits mono green, mono white. What do you think about Standard now, Krim, with these changes? And what do you think about these changes themselves?
So, okay, I do believe that the Alrund's Epiphany change should have happened a billion years ago, because that is a miserable card. What I am surprised by is Divide by Zero. What? Why? Legitimately, why? And Faceless Haven, I mean, is that who does that hit? Like mono white and mono green? But like that's not like the main problem, I guess, amongst those decks, and if those decks are even problematic. Well, green is, but like yeah, like I think that divide by zero was kind of random. Really surprised by that. Like
so.
Yeah.
You want my explanation for that banning? When I read this ban list, to me, what I see is Wizards wanting Kamigawa Neon Dynasty to actually show up in the format. And I would argue that Divide by Zero was banned. I know part of it was to power down Lyra and Hullbreaker, or Wizards said that in the BNR, but I think the other part of it that they couldn't have even said because this was before spoilers started, but I think it was to allow the Mythic Spirit Dragons to maybe be playable. Because you know what's really brutal against these like flashy, expensive cards with death triggers? That is just getting them bounced back to your hand repeatedly. And that's what would have happened. Like, how do you play Junji or any of those like really like awesome death trigger dragons if like the most played removal in Standard is Fading Hope and Divide by Zero? You just can't. Like it would be so bad. So I think that was one of the big reasons for it, is Wizards wanting people to be able to play their new Kamigawa cards and thinking, all right, no one's going to be able to play these dragons, at least competitively, if we let these really popular, powerful bounce spells stay in the format.
I mean, I think that wasn't going to happen anyways, but I mean, I guess like Divide by Zero is a big enough and a more popular card. So I guess, sure. I could
also
see
Lear.
that.
Also, Lear's a little busted.
I mean,
like Lear
yeah.
Divide by Zero like feels a little cheaty because you're not supposed to be able to counter things, but Divide by Zero like gets around that really efficiently. So I could see maybe that was their other concern, is like, if we do all these changes and Is It Control's just still the best deck without Epiphany and everyone just plays Lear and Hullbreaker Horror, like that's not really going to make, the Magic Arena subreddit crowd happy, at least. Like if that's how the meta ended up.
Yeah, but the Magic Arena subreddit's never happy, no matter what. They're perma pissed. and so like the thing here about that is I don't understand Divide by Zero at all. Like I get the other cards. I fully understand those. I mean, Faces Haven, I don't know, maybe. I don't understand that either. But like, come on. The whole so that you could play dragons. I don't think there's no way, right? There's just no way.
There's got to be other bounce spells in the format. So I don't know.
Yeah,
that
Fading
that's
Hope exists.
strong enough, but maybe it's too strong, right? Like, it's a bounce spell with value, so you bounce your stupid dragon, and then you play all your Strixhaven cards. Maybe they do want it gone, but I don't know. Like, I don't trust Wizards and their balancing anymore, so whatever they do is quite random to me. So, like, they're like, okay, we'll get Alrund's Epiphany, and then we'll start preemptively banning these other things to shape our meta. And, yeah, but the meta will be broken in some other way. So we'll just wait a couple of weeks for Neon Dynasty to come out, whatever gets broken, and then we'll go from there. But I don't know about these preemptive bans. Like, Wizards has shown they're not good at designing formats, so I don't know what the point of a preemptive ban is.
I think they want the meta broken by Kamigawa cards that they're currently trying to sell, not like Helltime cards that was so, a year ago at this point. If something's going to break, I think they'd rather have it be the new cards.
I guess that's fair.
So is Standard going to be better as a result of this? Like, I haven't played a ton. It's been spoiler season, so and I've been sick, so I haven't got to play that much since the bannings. But do you think this improves Standard? Is it going to be a more fun format as a result of these changes?
I mean, I think the format will be very fun because of Kamigawa, but mostly just because ninjutsu and whatnot. There's going to be a lot of cool things coming in from Kamigawa. Does that change the fact though that the meta will be solved early? Probably not. However, yeah, like I do think that this Kamigawa is looking absurdly fun. I don't even think we have every spoiler out yet, right? So like we're still missing like 200 some cards, I think. So from what I can see right now, like Kamigawa looks amazing, and I don't know. I guess Divide by Zero can contribute to some of the sadness, but
this is all Kamigawa. Like nobody is getting out of bed to play Alrund Epiphany banned Standard, right? We're all just gonna chill here and wait until Kamigawa releases, and then play that for a couple of weeks before we discover it's absurdly broken or underpowered in some way, and then complain, and then wait for the next set, I think.
I don't think Kamigawa is going to be underpowered. I think this set is absurd. Like genuinely absurd.
Then we'll
across
have the
power
other
level
problem,
and everything.
the Eldraine problem.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the
Like-
thing I see happening.
I mean, I'm way more excited to play the format now. I am kind of waiting for Kamigawa. I think that's what is what has me really hyped. But I would be much less excited about Kamigawa if I was evaluating it through the context of losing to Epiphany half the time. Now things feel possible, and I know it's just my brain tricking me into thinking it's possible. But Alchemy, I don't.
So is
I don't even know anymore
Kamigawa the
with
comeback
Alchemy.
for Standard?
I mean,
Everyone
I think
ditches
so.
Alchemy and plays Standard now that Kamigawa's back.
I don't know. I mean, is Alchemy not just standard? Like,
I mean, it's not. Look at the list of rebalanced cards, right? Plus, like 1 week into Kamigawa, people will be calling for nerfs and buffs in Alchemy to whatever in the set, right?
well, see, that's
Yeah,
the beauty of it. I don't have to worry about anything because in Alchemy, it'll be balanced. I think Alchemy has been a delight so far. So I don't know. I think, am I like the only person on the internet that enjoys Alchemy?
What I'm
not
asking
sure.
is, do you think people will shift back to Standard when when the new set releases, or they'll just keep playing Alchemy Kamigawa?
They're just gonna keep playing Alchemy Kamigawa. Like, why wouldn't you? Right? Like this is where if anything goes wrong, they can balance it. Right?
I mean, I will say the actual data that I've seen from like, I think Untap.gg tracks the formats that their users play. So this is somewhat skewed by probably like more enfranchised players who actually like sign up for a tracker like Untap.gg. But if you look at their data, Standard is actually like magnitudes more popular than Alchemy last time I saw the data, like just in terms of like the raw number of games played. So I kind of think like a lot of people are still playing Standard and aren't playing Alchemy for various reasons, and I think this improves Standard. For someone like me, it definitely has me interested again. If the choice was Standard with Alrund's Epiphany or Alchemy, I'm choosing Alchemy 100% of the time. Like, not even thinking about it. There's no way there's no way, even with Kamigawa releasing, that I'm going to go back to Standard and play against Alrund's Epiphany because it's just miserable. Now, though, there's actually a choice, and I think I'll probably play a mixture of Standard and Alchemy. Like, the Alchemy changes still have me excited because we just have new stuff all the time. Like, I want to know, like, are dungeons good now with all these buffs that they did, or like the other crazy things? So I'm excited about that, but without the miserable top deck in the format being there and the extra turn, like, loop stuff, that does make me interested in playing Standard again. So personally, I think I'll probably play a mixture of the two when Kamigawa comes out.
Like, well, I mean, yeah, like I'll still want to see what Standard's like because, like, of course, you know, you won't have any of the Alchemy exclusive cards, right? But I don't know. I mean, the Alchemy exclusive cards haven't even been that bad, so like, I don't know. Like, does this bring people back to Standard? I don't think so. I mean, it may for like a temporary spike, but yeah, like also, I don't even think that Alchemy took Standard players away entirely. I think people are still like on the fence about how Alchemy works. So, but yeah, like I'm on Alchemy the entire time. I'm playing Alchemy, and I'll try Standard.
As far as the Alchemy changes, there's a ton of them. I don't think we talk about all of them. Some of them really crack me up, though. The funniest one is there a Serac buff where now your opponent doesn't have the option to sack a creature when it attacks? You just get to make a zombie, which the funny thing about that is I don't think I've ever seen a Serac make a zombie or attack. Like, the only time I have ever seen a Serac see play is in some sort of like bounce it back to your hand to venture through dungeons style deck. So it's just like the most meaningless buff I could potentially like ever imagine for a Serac. It just like, I don't think it changes the card at all, but I guess technically it's better now. The other surprise was Wizards went hard after the dungeons. Like, do you think dungeons are going to be playable in Alchemy now that Wizards went through and nerfed like 10 cards that somehow interact with venturing into dungeons? Like, is it going to be enough to make that mechanic work?
I went ahead and already made a dungeon deck, and like I like tried to make a dungeon deck, but I so far, you know, the land descent or whatever down to the dungeons or whatever, like that card. The fact they need to remove it can only be activated at a sorcery speed. Even though it's 1 mana now as opposed to 4, dude, I feel like dungeons still just aren't doing it for me.
That card was turbo buffed. They went from 4 to 1. That's like a free, like,
and
double dark ritual there.
And the original came into play tap too.
Yeah.
Oh
like
my
there's
god.
so many
So
changes.
funnily enough, I was actually grinding EDH this weekend with a dungeon deck, and I must say it is the most terrible, most underwhelming mechanic I've ever seen in my life. Like, you work so hard, and after like 4 ventures, you like draw a card, and you're like, that's it. Like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I just cannot see this being competitive in standard in like any way, or in alchemy. Sorry.
The way they would be able to change things up is if they not only made like the dungeon cards better, but the dungeons themselves actually did something.
Yeah.
I mean, just from the way the dungeons are built right now, I think there's no way. The payoff is too small. It's just not worth it. And like legitimately that land was a buff in the right direction, but really, why sorcery speed? Like,
Yeah,
why?
I mean,
why?
I still don't think it's going to be enough to make it good, but it's enough to make me interested in trying dungeons again now, because they really did. They went pretty hard with these buffs. Like, not only a land, but a lot of other spells, they just like drop the cost by a mana, or like the biggest changes were really to make that whole mechanic better. I think maybe the most impactful changes for alchemy in specific are probably the cards from alchemy that change. And really, I think our predictions, as we had been talking about it, we kind of nailed it for the most part. Like Fearsome Whelp, the 2-drop dragon thing, now it triggers on your upkeep rather than immediately on your end step, which is something we had talked about. Inquisitor Captain, now you have to cast it, so you can't do the blink shenanigans, which is something we talked about. Townraiser Tyrant only hits non-basics, which I don't know if we actually predicted that one, but that seems like a good change.
That happened.
I mean, it was pretty strong. Like, that was a really good card. And I don't know if it needed to be buffed, but I'm fine with alchemy just changing all the time. Like, take the top cards and make them worse, make the bad cards better, just so it feels fresh. But I got to ask you, Crib, the other like huge change actually only hits historic, which is we're getting rebalanced versions of ban cards. And it started with one of your favorites, Teferi Time Raveler is back. It's 4 mana now. Otherwise, it's almost the same. Its static ability was changed slightly to your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So you can't really use it to win counter wars or whatever on your opponent's turn, but you are going to be clear to do your stuff during your turn. Otherwise, I think it's essentially the same as far as its abilities. What do you think of this new version, Krim? Is Teferi actually going to be playable again?
So I went ahead and also built that deck because, you know, I gotta. I do think that the uptick in mana is definitely very, very much so. Like, it could be, like, the upside is now I don't hit my own Teferi with something like, let's just say Shadow's Verdict, right? Like, that's great. But the slot where Teferi came down on the curve at 3 mana was huge. So, like, I think with Teferi getting upticked up to 4 mana now, this is gonna sound weird, but I think he should have one more ability. I don't think that it's actually like it's just okay. The ability, like the passive, is still like solid. Like the card, I'm not expecting it to be what it once was, right? Because what it once was obviously very powerful. But I think this new version needs one more ability. It's not enough, I guess. I feel like if I'm tapping out for 4 mana historic, I want to actually like win the game. Or like at least have a pretty solid piece on the board, right? Like, and Teferi does not feel like it's a game ender yet, or like even like a way to help you move towards closing out the game.
I mean, I do think it might be a little bit underpowered now, but I'm kind of okay with that. I would say like, I feel like if they're going to rebalance existing cards, they got to try to take as light of a touch as possible. Like, the further you get away from the original, I think the stronger the argument becomes for just like making a whole new card and leaving the card banned. So if they were going to take Teferi and just like start adding new abilities and like completely making it a different card, that would make me wonder, like, why are you even rebalancing it? Why does it even have the name Teferi Time Raveler? Why didn't you just release this in Alchemy or something as a new version of Teferi? So I think, like, if the goal is to keep it as close to the original as possible, but have it not be as broken, I feel like they did an okay job, but I'm honestly not sure this version is going to see much play at all, costing 4 mana. It seems, I haven't really played with it myself, but my gut reaction is it's just probably not good enough and a little bit too slow for historic now.
It's just okay. I think that's the main thing. Like, it's legitimately just perfectly average.
So they don't have
Maybe
to
that's
refund
good,
you
though.
wild cards. Technically,
I
you
mean,
can play your
did-
terrible Teferi now. Like, going from 3 to 4 changes the card entirely. So I agree with Seth, they should be a light touch, but they should have kept him at 3 CMC and somehow fixed him otherwise, because, you know, you're changing his spot on the curve and you're changing his role in the game. He's effectively a new card, right? So I actually don't like this move to 4 mana value.
I don't know if you guys read the article where they announced this change. They they had a line in there, speaking of wild cards, where they're like, before you ask, don't worry, we're not going to go back into your collection and take out the wild cards that we refunded you 2 years ago for banning Teferi the first time. I was like, why would you even feel the need to say that? Why did anyone at Wizards have an idea pop into their head that could even be a possibility that you would go in and retroactively like recoup the wild card refund from 2 years ago because you made this rebalance version?
That would be pretty
That was
funny.
maybe
we would be
my
in
favorite.
negative wild cards if we
Wild card debt. They're going to send us to wild card collections.
There's
and we're
probably
gonna-
an epic debate internally in Watson whether they should take back the wild cards, and they narrowly just won out to not take them back, so they felt the need to proclaim it, you know?
See, we're in your good graces now, right? We gave you some wild cards and didn't take them back.
All right, last banning topic, and then we really got to get to spoilers. Ragavan banned in Legacy. Anyone got any thoughts on the Legacy changes?
I don't play Legacy, so
Card was dumb.
So, I'm always in favor of the stupid monkey seeing less play. It feels like Legacy players were pretty happy with the change overall. So I think I'll just go with what I've heard all of them saying, which seems to be, in general, people are happy about Ragavan being gone in the format, and probably a good thing. Also, I guess last thing, are you surprised at all at no modern changes?
I'm so surprised by that. Like nothing? Not even like okay, fine. Well, maybe not a ban, but like unban? Anything? Like just anything at all, please? I'm just surprised that nothing happened.
I'm shocked Wizards doesn't want
Yeah.
to sell 3 mana value up cards. Like, what? like even if the metagame is perfectly balanced, right? Like, you effectively just remove like half of your sellable cards. So I am shocked they haven't done anything about it.
I was pretty surprised too. I thought at least Lurrus would go, and I thought that unbannings were like a real possibility. Just unban some like relatively harmless thing just so there'd be some amount of change. But at the same time, I guess I'm not super disappointed. The only thing I'm really disappointed by is Lurrus. Like, I still really strongly feel that Lurrus is a bad thing for the format, and I hope it goes eventually. But otherwise, I can deal with the monkey and deal with Saga for the time being, because the format is still really enjoyable to play, even if those cards are like certainly a couple of the strongest in the entire format. But anyway, we should probably talk spoilers. So that's the BNR update. Let's move on, talk some Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. We're like 4 days into spoiler season, but we have like a million cards. Wizard spoiler pacing. I love to dump a million cards at the beginning of spoiler season. So we got a ton of mythics, we got a ton of rares. So you can check them all out over mtgpreviews.com. We update it throughout the day, and there's daily spoiler videos on the YouTube that you should watch. But for now, Richard, why don't you take it away and guide us through some spoiler cards?
All right, let's start off with the new mechanics. Let's start off with like a little bomb here, which everyone figured out. Tamiyo completed Sage. So it's a new Planeswalker, completed Sage. So Phyrexian Tamiyo. 2 green, Phyrexian green blue, and then blue. So a hybrid mana symbol in which you can pay either with Phyrexian mana, so 2 life, or green or blue. So that is the new mechanic. The mechanic's called completed. So 5 starting loyalty, legendary planeswalker Tamiyo, +1, tap up to 1 target artifact or creature. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. -X, exile target non-land permanent card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of that card. -7, create Tamiyo's Notebook, a legendary colorless artifact with spells you cast cost 2 less, and tap, draw a card.
Are they not doing emblems anymore? We're just making
that-
an artifact? What's going on?
That caught me by surprise too.
Interactable
Yeah.
I think
right?
I think can you tap an emblem? Like, is that even a thing you can do? I was wondering if that's what made it happen. Like, yeah, because I don't know if you can tap an emblem, or maybe you can.
I don't think so. It's not like a permanent, right?
I don't know.
We've never had an emblem that's been tapped before.
Could they just
it's kind of
the
that
rules
weird
to allow
like,
emblems to be tapped?
I mean, it definitely makes it a lot less powerful. I guess that would be the only other consideration is maybe they thought the emblem would just be too strong and they needed to have it killable essentially.
It should be
yeah,
strong.
like I don't know. I mean, I love this Tamiyo though. I think like flavor wise, I think a lot of things are really cool about it. Like the adding of the Phyrexian mana was really fun, but what is this ultimate? Like this is the first time where it's like, wow, this ultimate is like, I get an artifact. That's it. It's not even worth the rest of the troubles. But I mean, the nice thing here though is you can at the very least get a Tamiyo at a reduced cost. So I think that's pretty interesting. Like the whole the return of Phyrexian mana and whatnot. And like maybe it's like this is definitely more a balanced version of Phyrexian mana, but it's still Phyrexian.
Yeah, I like how I'm surprised to see Phyrexian mana return because that's like a notoriously one of the most broken mechanics Wizard ever made. But this does seem like a really fair way to use it, where I think if you cast Tamiyo for 5 or for 4 with the Phyrexian mana, it's still going to be a fair card. And I like how there's a bit of a cost, like you get less loyalty if you use the Phyrexian mana. So I think it's a really cool design. I don't know what the power level of Tamiyo is, honestly. I think the negative X is pretty interesting. Essentially a Simic reanimation spell that can hit any non-land permanent. So yeah, there's a mana value restriction, but still, if you play this for 5 mana, you can immediately reanimate something up to 5 mana, which isn't bad. Like 5 mana reanimation is kind of the going rate in standard. So that part really intrigues me. The rest of it, I feel like the ultimate is a little disappointing just because I know like you're going to do all this work and you're going to get this cool not emblem that's actually a legendary artifact. And then it's going to get Prismari commanded or like some horrible thing's going to happen. Like, and you're just gonna waste your Tamiyo. So I don't know. With the emblem not being an emblem, with it being a legendary artifact, I kind of feel like maybe this is a little bit weak overall. Even though I do really like the design of it.
Yeah, the emblem being something you can target and remove off a Prismari command is definitely kind of underwhelming.
I don't know why you guys are talking about this emblem. Like no one gets the emblem off, but like this card is just.
I mean, fair.
Trash. Like they were like too safe with the Phyrexian mana, right? Like so there is the drawback. So if you cast it normally, it's 5 loyalty. If you cast it with Phyrexian, it's 3 loyalty. But the +1 is like pretty weak. The reanimation hinges on if there's a broken low mana value thing to reanimate. But like this is just like way safe, which is what we want, right? But I don't know, it's unplayable for your Mythic Tamiyo though.
You know what they should have done? They should have 2, it should be 1 generic mana and then have 2 of the Phyrexian symbols. So you could cast it for 3 mana and it would start with 1 loyalty. Would that make it better?
I think that would be pretty good, yeah.
Would it?
I think that would be really cool.
All you do is just tap something. So
I mean that's pretty good.
I mean, if you get back a Mishra's Bauble, I guess, or something.
Oh God.
It's basically Luris.
just hope there's something spicy to reanimate, and then maybe you can Tamiyo it. But other than that, it's kind of meh. All right, so we have sagas in this set, and the sagas on the 3rd chapter flip the card into the backside into an enchantment creature. So we have new sagas that transform into enchantment creatures. And let's go with Hidetsugu. I can find him amongst all these neon variants. Oh God. Okay, I gotta search consumes all. Okay. I'm like, there's so many neon variants of the other one. Okay. So Hidetsugu consumes all 1 black and a red. First chapter. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. 2, exile all graveyards. 3, exile the saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. The backside, Vessel of the All-Consuming. Enchantment creature, Ogre Shaman, 3/3 trample. When it deals damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever it deals damage to a player, if it has dealt 10 or more damage to that player this turn, they lose the game.
Cool.
So this is like
how good
a
are these
suspend
cards?
Creature with like 2 upkeep abilities before they unsuspend, right? something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my biggest concern. If you think about how this card works, like you play it on turn 3, you blow up some little stuff. Turn 4, you exile graveyards. Turn 5, you flip it, but because it exiles, it's going to be summoning sick. So you can't attack with it until turn 6. And this has been my problem with all of these sagas, really, is that just feels so slow. Like, by the time it flips around into a 3/3, what are the odds you're going to be able to start attacking with your Vessel of the All-Consuming? Like, it's a 3/3 on turn 6. Your mono green opponent just played, a 4/4 on turn 3. Like, you're going to be so far behind by the time it flips around. So I'm really, really curious. All of these sagas, the designs are so sweet, but they just feel so super slow to me to get to their creature form. But am I off base? Are they better than I give them credit for?
I mean, there's a chance these actually, like, the meta could see these get played. Right? I mean, we don't have Divide by Zero anymore, right? So I guess there's no worry about like getting my sagas bounced out of nowhere. I mean, maybe the creature half and whatnot, but like, if they're bouncing my creature half, that's not the end of the world, right? So I think there's just enough value here. It kind of comes down to what the first 2 chapters do on their own, right? Because anything that happens afterward, it's just more value for you. If they use removal, they use it on something that you already got your use out of. So I think the fact that they flip into a creature is, well, that's pretty major. And I think that's going to be definitely make sagas way more playable.
I think I'm with you as far as, for me, I'm mostly evaluating them based on their first 2 lore counters. Like, if those first 2 lore counters are good enough for me to want the card, then the creature is just kind of all upside. It's just like a bonus. On the other hand, we've seen some, like, Tribute to Hirobi, first 2 lore counters just give each opponent a 1/1. That does not make me as excited. Like, if those first 2 lore counters are not beneficial, or they're helping your opponent in the case of Tribute to Hirobi, then I don't think the creature is, it's just not fast enough for me to make it worth it. So I think that's how you got to evaluate them. For Hitasugo in specific, this card to me screams modern. Like, we see people playing like Crime Punishment. We see Engineered Explosives being like an ultra staple. To me, this reads like snipe all your opponent's Herbs of the Saga constructs, wrath the graveyard against Lurrus decks, and then you get a creature, which is fine. It's only a 3/3 and it's probably going to die to Lightning Bolt, but still, like, that's a bonus. So I am actually more hyped for Hitasugo Consumes All in Modern than in Standard, I think.
Yeah, Hitasugo looks pretty cool. But I'm not sure if like modern, if it's fast enough for modern, right? Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. I mean, like, that's pretty decent. Exile all graveyards. I mean, maybe. I guess maybe.
I mean, if you play Explosives on 1 and then pay 2 more to cast it, that's 3 mana. It is split up between turns, but Engineer Explosives is like one of the most played sideboard cards right now. So I think just for that alone,
but
I
like
would consider
Explosives,
it.
you get you get to pop it, right? Like it's flexible and you get to pop it whenever, right? Like, as long as you have the mana. So like, I could pay 2 mana, put it on 2 counters, and pop it instantly. This will always be locked behind the fact that it has to have its chapters uptick at my upkeep or whatever, or my main phase 1. So that's a
true.
lot slower.
But you get a 3/3. You get a 3/3 when it's all said and done.
Yeah, 3/3 like 3 turns later in Modern, like you get to finish a whole second game like before this like went off, right? Like
it comes back in game 2 sometime, in the middle of game 2. Boom, it's back.
I remember this can be removed,
that would make
right?
sense.
You can also remove the saga at any time. But I don't know. All the sagas seem very they seem like they were designed for limited, and they're at rarity because you don't want. They're at rares because you don't want them all over your limited games, but the front sides are all super underwhelming, and then the back sides are all equally underwhelming creatures. So, like, I'm not sure you want to go through this effort. And remember, if you're top decking this late game, you don't get a creature to chump block with or something right off the bat, right? You have, like, nothing, right? You get your Saga trigger, which may or may not be relevant. So it's not even, like, a creature you can chump with or try to finish the game with. Like, you draw this on turn 6, you're attacking like turn 9 or something, right? So like, I don't know, they seem very underwhelming for the rarity given to them.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. They just feel so incredibly slow to me.
All right. Next up, we have a new mechanic, Channel. So it's on Boseiju Who Endures, which is a new legendary land at rare. You can tap it to add a green. It enters untapped. And you can use its channel ability, which is 1 and a green, discard Boseiju, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. That player may search their library for a land card with a basic land type, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control.
Oh my, this card is so incredibly broken. Like I am blown away that this card actually exists. And this is like mostly for older formats, but even in standard, like I love MDFCs. I love MDFCs. They're some of my favorite cards. If you think about a Magic deck, you got to play like 25 lands. Most of the times, those lands don't do anything. They're just letting you cast your other spells. So lands that do things are really powerful. If you think about a Mythic MDFC, you got to pay 3 life for it to come into play untapped. And most of them are really overcosted. It's like 7 mana spells that you can't use to the late game. This comes into play untapped all the time for no cost of life, and it has a 2 mana effect. It's like a naturalize, which is already like pretty close to being on curve. Like people play naturalized style artifact destruction, and it comes attached to a land. Like, wow, this card is so insane to me. Like I feel like this card just changes modern and legacy and vintage, and I play it in every commander deck, and I play it in every standard deck. Am I overrating this card, or is this card just like absurd?
Oh, this card's absurd. This card is just absolutely bonkers, right? Like the flexibility of this is like exactly why I'm in love with this.
This is so broken.
Yeah.
This is a mistake. Like, so it's destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land. So that's 2 mana non-basic land destruction. Like what? On a land? And like, oh, forget if you have life from the loam or something, right? Like good luck, right? Like you can just keep casting this forever. Like, yeah. I'm shocked that this is a thing. And, you know, there's no real downside. Like, the downside is a legendary land, but then you can just use this channel ability. You know, you don't need to, like, you know, you don't get duplicates that do nothing. So I'm actually shocked they did this, and I'm shocked that in standard you're going to see non-basic land hate.
Good.
I mean, so it is worth mentioning that you get a land, you get to replace it with a land. So it's not like you're sinkholing someone. Like they do get to get another land to replace it. So, and I think they worded it with the basic land types to keep you from locking people too easily in like modern or legacy, where people don't play that many basics. You can actually grab dual land, so that gives people enough stuff in their deck that they're not going to get immediately wasted. Landed you can or underground sea or whatever. Yeah,
I thought you could, because like I thought you could like basically like land destruction people, like people do with what's the like lean and arbiter stuff, right? Where they just like remove your one basic or whatever, from the game, and then you're like totally hosed, right?
Yeah, so it's a little safer than that, but I still think it's like, to me, this, like, how do I play a Blood Moon deck now? Like, this kills Trinispheres. It kills Chalice of the Voids. It kills stuff at instant speed through a Teferi. Like, it gets rid of every relevant hate card, like Rest in Pieces and Rule of Laws, all the stuff that people play. Like, I don't know how this isn't just... I don't know how Vintage Shops exists with this being a card in the format. Like, how does a deck like that actually remain a thing? And plus, you can get it back with Ren and 6. You can get it back with Life from the Low. You can get it back with Sloggerk and Standard. Like, I think this ends up with, like, Ren and 6 getting banned. I don't know how, because this is a whole cycle, too. We're talking about one of them, and I think this is the best of them. But the whole cycle seems like pretty really playable. Good. The blue one, is 4 mana bounce a non-land essentially, except it doesn't say non-land, so you can bounce creature lands or like Urza Saga. So yeah, I think this whole cycle is just, it's everything I love about MDFCs, but I think these are just like way more powerful. You know, and I think MDFCs are pretty busted.
Disgusting about this? You monkey. And that gives you your legendary creature to reduce the cost of this. Like it's like so disgusting on so many levels. Like
it's insane. It's just and then worst case you play it as a land. Like, and it comes into play untapped, and it doesn't even cost you life.
This is Seth's dream. Untapped MDFCs.
It really is. It's oh my goodness, it's so good. I mean, you play this in essentially every commander deck, right? Why would you not?
Oh yeah,
I mean, maybe not if you're 5 color or something and you can't afford a land that taps for 1 color mana, but otherwise, why wouldn't you play it in every deck in essentially every format?
It is legitimately just free, right? Like, it's so good.
Yeah, especially as a one of. Like, there's maybe a little clunkiness if you play the full 4 copies. You still, maybe there's not enough good stuff to blow up, and you don't want to keep giving your opponent lands, so you don't want to, and you get a little legend rule trouble, but it's like a 1 of or a 2 of. I don't know how this isn't just a free roll in essentially every format.
The only saving grace is they're not mythics.
That is
wild cards. Thank you.
Although it's still like $35 pre-sale at the moment or something, so still not going to be cheap.
Still can't believe. Ugh, like what happened to lands that are just lands? Like, why do they have to have spells stapled on? All right, next, reconfigure mechanic. Essentially allows you to attach a creature onto something else as an equipment. So that comes on Lion Sash, which is 1 and a white, 1/1 artifact creature equipment cat. Pay a single white, exile target card from a graveyard. If it was a permanent card, put a +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Lion Sash. Reconfigure 2. Attached to target creature you control or unattached from a creature. Reconfigure only as a sorcery. While attached, this isn't a creature.
Are we finally there? Like, are we finally at a point where maybe now there's actually good enough artifacts? Because remember, we were talking about it earlier, Seth, okay? Remember how we predicted that, or at least I did for sure. I was saying that the, what is it, fighter class or whatever, that could go and get equipments, right? Now, are we at that point now?
I mean, if you can grab a creature, that makes it way more exciting. Then your Enlightened Tutor is also a Worldly Tutor or something, if you have enough of these in your deck. So I think that actually does change things like fighter class. I mean, I think that's the biggest upside of something like Lion Sash is like, you can grab it with Stoneforge, you can grab it with fighter class. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say these cards might actually make fighter class playable in Standard.
I mean, this card is awesome, right? Like,
it's pretty close to Scavenging Ooze. That can also be in it. Like, even if it didn't do the weird equipment thing, and this was just a white Scavenging Ooze, even that would be like pretty good. But the fact that it can be gotten by fighter class and Stoneforge, that just like puts it over the top. What do you think, Richard? You're the equipment master here. I'm curious what you think of this mechanic, because you play more equipment than me and Krim put together, I think.
So in Commander, I think it's bad. So really? I would much rather have Living Weapon, because this is equipment that gets wrathed, right? So
it's true.
That, like, you know, you can get your equipment removed, which is a little problematic in something like Commander. But I think in 1v1 formats, I think it's strong. Like, do you play this in Modern with Stoneforge Mystic as a way to, like,
I think so,
tutor up to get some graveyard hate, right? Like, that is a real possibility. So I actually think these are quite playable in Standard and maybe even Modern. But I'd rather prefer Living Weapon. Like, I don't want to play this and then get it swept up with the Wrath. So I don't know. Maybe you play. Maybe Lion Sash may be good enough for the graveyard hate alone to play in Commander. But
yeah, that's
like Lizard Blades.
That's what I was going to say.
Which is Fire Shrieker. Do you play Lizard's Blades or do you play Fire Shrieker?
Yeah, I think Lion Sash is the exception because it's tutorable graveyard hate, essentially, which I don't think we had on any other equipment before. So I think that makes it unique. The rest of them, I think being a creature is actually a drawback in Commander a lot of the times, like you were saying. Like, I think I would rather have real equipment that don't die to a sweeper than those in most cases.
But in Standard, this card is definitely, I think, playable. So
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely playable in Standard. And I think it's going to show up in Stoneforge decks in Modern. I mean, it's a really nice, just like one of in the main deck of the sideboard. And in there, it's not going to replace Calder, Complete, or Batterskull, but in the right matchup, like, this is a great tutor target if you're up against Reanimator or Dredge or some other deck like that. Like, that's going to be a go-to tutor target. So I think it's going to show up in Modern too.
Except now those decks have that stupid land to just blow up the stuff.
I mean, that is a thing. New meta. All right. Next up, we have Kodama of the West Tree. 2 and a green, 3/3, legendary creature, spirit at Mythic, reach. Modified creatures you control have trample. When a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle.
And modified means it is equipped, it has an aura on it, or it has a counter on it. So that's what makes something modified.
Yeah. And I think that that's going to be pretty easy to do, considering that things, you know, example, like give stuff themselves like just a menace counter or maybe an aura or an equipment or just, of course, a classic 1/1 counter. So I think modified is actually going to be pretty good, depending on what like the modified payoffs are. Like, for example, right now, looking at this, maybe this isn't as immediately going to take off, but, you know, think of like something like a Wild Growth Walker or something like that, right? And then just something that gives itself counter super easily. I can imagine like a mid-range deck, maybe a Golgari mid-range deck popping off with that. So I think it just needs a few more pieces. But for right now, Modified looks like it could be powerful. And Kodama would definitely be at the center of whatever that is.
Yeah, I mean, we do have +1/+1 counter stuff in Standard. There's just like 1-drop, 0/0, enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter.
Mentor.
So it's not that hard to, there's Mentor stuff. If you go back to like Historic or Pioneer, then you get like Winding Constrictors and Conclave Mentors. You got Hardened Scales decks in Modern. So there are definitely decks where like most of your creatures are just incidentally going to be modified, and giving those things trample actually seems kind of nice. Like I've noticed that with some of the Conclave Mentor decks or Winding Constrictor decks that I've seen in like Historic, sometimes they can build like a massive creature and then it just gets chump blocked forever until they die. This kind of takes away that problem and it ramps you and thins your deck. I think this definitely shines in Commander as well. Like in Commander, odds are you're going to be able to get in some attacks with it. You actually have stuff to ramp into, and everyone's playing some number of equipment, and +1/+1 counter theme decks would definitely want this Torrens or Hamza, the elephant thing. So I think this card's actually really good.
This card is so ridiculously broken in Commander. This is the new Toski. Like
what?
You equip your Dowsing Dagger, you hit him. Like that's +4 mana, right? Like everyone plays like just like boots, right? You put boots on something and you hit them and you ramp, right? Like that's ridiculous. You put boots on something, it has trample now. Like that's ridiculous. You play Experiment 1 and you hit someone, right? And is it each creature? So if
if you hit with multiple creatures, you get 4
ramp.
lands. Yeah, that
is
this
you
is
just
a very
curve out
good 3/3.
Like, yeah, you just curve out with like a 1 mana 1/1 with like a 2 mana 2 +1/+1 counters or whatever. You hit someone, that's like a 3 mana explosive vegetation, right? Like that's,
and it sticks around, so you do it again the next turn and the next turn. Like this card, I don't think it's a very good Commander, but in the 99, I think this is like just insane in Commander.
It is so ridiculous. It actually makes me sad because we like you're gonna run out of basics to ramp. Like you really, it's gonna be very difficult.
We're all going to be building Tomer decks now with 20 basics for some reason.
All right. Next up, we have Jin Gataxias, Progress Tyrant. 5 blue, 5/5, legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor. Whenever you cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once each turn. Whenever an opponent casts an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, counter that spell. This ability triggers only once each turn.
This card is going to be amazing in Commander. When I say amazing, there are going to be a lot of people upset at you, but like the thing here is this card is going to be fun. In 60 card formats, is this good? Somebody like I don't think this is playable, right?
It looks really bad compared to Hullbreaker Horror to me. Like in Standard, if I'm like, okay, same mana cost, what would I rather play in my ramp deck or control deck? It's really hard outside of like fun against the odds shenanigans, like for me to understand why I'd play Jin Gataxias over Hullbreaker Horror in Standard.
Full agree.
In Commander though, this card, oh my goodness, the people are just going to be really salty about this card, which I guess makes sense because people get salty about original Jin too because it kind of just gets your hand and it's like miserable. But this card actually seems like really, really powerful in Commander, like borderline, like almost too powerful, like at the very top end. I'm not saying it's like a bad thing or whatever, but I think this is going to annoy a lot of people and be really strong in essentially any Commander deck.
What's the card that makes people only cast 1 spell per turn?
Oh, Archon of Emiria is one of them. Rule of Law, I think, is another
Rule
one.
Of Law. So Rule of Law, Jin Gataxias. That's the thing.
Got him. I mean, it does exempt creatures and planeswalkers. So your opponent can still like play creatures, but you do lock spells and artifacts out of the game.
Oh,
perfect.
It's fun then. It's fine.
Yeah, see, so it's balanced.
It's balanced.
Balanced.
It's okay, everyone. Just cast your boom piles. Oh no, you can't.
you got to use like a nickel bolus or something to kill Jin Gataxias.
Kill it? Yo, no. We're stealing that. What are you talking about?
All right. The Wanderer's back. The Wandering Emperor. 2 white, legendary planeswalker, mythic. There's no name. It's just legendary planeswalker, by the way. 3 starting loyalty, flash. As long as the Wandering Emperor entered the battlefield this turn, you may activate her Loyalty abilities, anytime you could cast an instant, +1, put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target creature. It gains first strike until end of turn. -1, create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with vigilance. -2, exile target tapped creature. You gain 2 life.
Is this card good? This is like one of the most unique planeswalkers we've seen. It's like a pump spell that's a planeswalker essentially.
I think this is good. I think this is definitely good.
Yeah, you get a double.
I mean, it does seem like a blowout waiting to happen when you flash it in and get someone's attacking creature or pump your stuff and kill their stuff. So you should be able to get a 2-for-1 out of it at least.
Yeah, 100%. This thing is the flash is big, right? I mean, let's not lie to that. That's just such a powerful ability to put on a planeswalker on top of that. If you even want to move it into like Commander, that's a great format to have it too, just because of the fact that, you can like do this at the end of a turn cycle, so your planeswalker doesn't get attacked. I do wish you could activate all abilities at instant speed, but like that would be too broken.
Wait,
or I mean constantly.
Can't you activate all abilities?
Yeah. I meant like
every
constantly.
turn. You mean?
Yeah, every turn.
Oh yeah, that might that might be
That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah,
that might be a little
ridiculous.
too good.
but yeah, like this is still very good regardless. And in a 1v1 format, this card is gonna just this is it, right? It perfectly allows you to still be aggressive, to have a planeswalker in your aggressive deck. It just does a lot of what you want.
Isn't this just better Gideon? Like,
I
guess Gideon was a 0, and you can emblem.
Oh yeah,
like
so you can keep
like
making tokens.
Because what you can do is you can just hold this up, and then if nothing happens, you can end of turn flash it in, create a 2/2, and then untap, make another 2/2, and your planeswalker's still on 1 loyalty. Or if they like attack you with a big creature, you flash it in and then you exile it, and then you untap, and then I don't know, pump something, I guess. So I don't know. It seems pretty versatile. I think it's like kind of Gideon, where you can throw it in aggressive decks. Maybe you can also throw it in just random control decks. So I think this should be a decent card.
Yeah, I guess the exile ability is actually pretty fairly costed. I think, don't we have like, is it exclude? There's one in standard that's 3 mana, just exile a tap creature, and it costs 3 mana, and this is 1 more mana, and you get all this token making potential and pumping on top of it. So yeah, I think it's probably got to even just like cast this, exile something during your opponent's turn, untap, make a 2/2. Even that is a decent amount of value for 4 mana.
Yeah. I think Flash makes any planeswalker significantly better, because you can just flash it in end of turn. It doesn't get attacked. And then this one actually allows you to do a double activation, because you can activate once when you flash it in and then once during your turn. So I actually think it's pretty strong.
Like, it doesn't do anything flashy, but I do think it's very strong. Yeah.
It literally does something flashy.
I guess it does. But it's not like exciting. It's very simple, like basic abilities, but legit, it is sweet.
Yeah.
White weenie.
I'm coming around.
White weenie, let's go. You can like put a +1/+1 counter on your reconfigure Lion Sash. Like, come on.
Ooh,
wait, Seth. You're not down for this? But what was the dude from the D&D set? The white planeswalker from
Grandmaster. Give it time, Grim. Grandmaster of Flowers. Actually, the reason I'm a little skeptical of this is because of Grandmaster of Flowers doing nothing. Because I was so hyped for Grandmaster of Flowers, and then just no one plays it. So now I see another white 4-mana planeswalker, and this one probably is good. But I'm a little nervous to go all like crazy and be like, yeah, this card's so good, because last time I missed by a mile.
Burned by the white weenie.
Yeah.
All right. Tezzeret, Betrayer of Flesh, 2 blue, 4 loyalty, legendary planeswalker to fairy. The first activated ability of an artifact you activate each turn costs 2 less to activate. +1, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact. -2, target artifact becomes an artifact creature. If it isn't a vehicle, it has base power and toughness, 4/4. -6, you get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, draw a card.
Oh, thank God, we're still doing emblems. All right, cool.
Oh, that's right. Wanderer didn't have an emblem.
Yeah, you would be surprised, like that. Wow, we're still doing emblems. It feels like they're phasing this out or something like that, which I hope they don't do. But yeah, this looks good. This looks good. Like somebody was trying to say to me that this could potentially get some play in Modern. I mean, What do you think? Is this modern playable? I mean, Tezzeret Agent of Bolas, like, is better,
Tezzeret
right?
Agent of Bolas is so good,
we have
and that
better
doesn't even
Tezzerets.
really see play. Like, I mean, I don't think it's. I don't know. Maybe there's something with that static ability, with
Can you
your
go
activated
infinite?
abilities being less.
Well, it's the first activated ability.
you only get to do
But you-
one,
so
so I
there's
feel
something
like
you can activate to bounce Tezzeret and then go infinite.
oh,
Right.
I haven't found that, but maybe that could work.
like, but it would. Well, I guess it could be like cost 2 less to cast. Does
To activate.
no, or to activate the
Yeah.
Ornithopter combo doesn't even use mana. It uses Thopters, or not the Ornithopter, just the
Yeah.
Thopter combo
Thopter
uses.
sword.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Could this be modern playable? Sure. Like, it just reminds me of so many other Tezzerets. I like Tezzeret a lot, but this is just very, like, +1, thirst for knowledge, essentially. Draw some cards. -2, pump an artifact into a creature. Ultimate does some artifact thing. Like, a pretty cookie cutter Tezzeret for me. I don't think it's bad. I think it's pretty good in a deck full of artifacts, but it's probably a little worse than Agent of Bolas, I would say.
It's the most Tezzeret-y thing that Tezzeret could do. Yes.
What about the free crew? Can we break that? Right? Because essentially -2, if you -2 a vehicle, you just crew it for free.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I'm hyped about. I always have wanted to build a deck around Consulate Dreadnought, the 1-mana vehicle that's like a 7/11, but it costs, I don't know, infinite to crew, some really high number. And normally, if you use in Soul Artifact or something, it's actually a drawback because it turns it into a smaller creature because it resets its base power and toughness. Tezzeret actually works really well with that, like turning your high crew cost vehicle into a creature with its real power and toughness forever. That could be a thing. So maybe that's where Tezzeret could shine the most. Does this probably is not true, but does the reduction of activated abilities hit crew costs? Like, does that make your crew costs less? Because that is activated
Reduction.
ability.
Because that's not mana, right? Or,
Yeah.
'cause
It
Okay.
just
it's
costs
like
2
mana.
less,
Yeah.
not 2
Okay,
power
so-
less, right? So
So it would hit like equipment
Yeah.
being equipped or something. Okay. That makes sense. But yeah, I think vehicles could be a potential home with the -2.
It's also a permanent in Soul Artifact as well, right? So do we have
Yeah.
indestructible lands in Standard? The Kaldheim duels, right? they in Standard?
We have,
The Snow duels.
they are, those ones are from Modern Horizons.
Oh, those are
aren't
Modern
they?
Horizons? Okay, never mind.
The indestructible ones were the artifact ones
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Modern
yeah.
Horizons. Yeah. So I don't think we have indestructible lands in Standard.
But it doesn't say end of turn. I don't know if that's a bug, that's like a Oracle issue.
No, I
It's permanent.
I think
right?
it sticks.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can install artifact, some indestructible thingy, and do something.
All the
but I mean, why not just
Yeah.
cast in Soul Artifact for 2 mana?
Is that in
although
Standard?
yeah. Also, Tezzeret Agent Bolas does the same thing, but it makes it a 5/5.
Yeah, so
But that's also not in Standard. So in Standard, it could be cool, or maybe like Historic. We've seen some like Blackstaff of Waterdeep style like artifact aggro decks, and we don't have Tezzeret Agent of Bolas in Historic, so maybe it could serve a similar role. Maybe that's where this fits, like
Yeah.
a slightly worse Tezzeret Agent of Bolas, but one that's legal in Standard and Historic, where Tezzeret Agent of Bolas isn't.
fair. Yeah. Like, I mean, there's already a popular blue-white affinity deck, right? So now you just kind of throw this in here, right in there, and like,
Yeah.
you know
Make
what?
your ornithopters big or whatever, beat them down.
Yeah, no, this is pretty good actually. Now that I think about it, though a lot of those like affinity cards are also in Standard right now, right? Like you have that one blue staff. It's like 2 and a blue, and like you
Yeah,
can-
Blackstaff of Waterdeep. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's actually a decent amount of things you can do. I mean, it's been a minute since we've had artifacts actually be like really, really good in Standard. So, yeah.
And all this artifact stuff, like, we know we're going to Brothers War, Urza,
Yeah.
and Mishra, like, those have got to be super artifacty sets. So Tezzeret's one of those cards that, like, even if it doesn't take off immediately in Standard, just wait until we get those sets that are almost assuredly going to be artifact focused, and maybe this is going to be, like, really, really good then.
All right. Last card. My personal favorite. Mech Titan Core. 2 generic, 2/4. It's literally Voltron. Like, look at the art of, I don't know what version this is. This other art version. It's literally Voltron. So artifact vehicle, 5 generic exile Mech Titan core, and 4 other artifact creatures and or vehicles you control. Create Mech Titan, a legendary 10/10 construct artifact creature token with flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste that's all colors. When that token leaves the battlefield, return all cards exiled with Mech Titan core except Mech Titan core to the battlefield tapped under their owner's control. Crew 2.
I am so here for this card. Like the vehicles on this and the new like blue-white commander. Oh man, I am definitely building a blue-white commander deck now. And like Mech Titan core, that's exactly what I want to see, right? Like I had joked about it when I saw the commander, like, oh, I'm making a Gundam deck. Now I'm actually making a Gundam deck. And as funny as this is, this actually just looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. So I'm chuckling at that on top of that. So I am here for all these vehicles right now. And Mech Titan core costing 2 mana is amazing. It's not exact, like, I don't know if that's like actually like all that good, when it comes to like 60 card constructed, but commander, this is going to be a blast.
This card is super fun. Like this is one of the cards I want to build around most. I also think it's probably like an against odds card rather than something that's going to be like top tier in standard or whatever. But it's just like, it's super fun. It's got like a cool quest. You get a powerful reward. It has haste. It's got good flavors. So yeah, this is one of my favorite cards from the set too.
All right, I'm going to go down the rabbit hole here. But okay, this card is so good because you can put like sky scanners and stuff under it. So when they remove your Mech Titan, they all come back and you get to draw so many cards. But the real reason is it combos with Happily Ever After.
Oh my god.
So that's the Eldraine. It's like the mono white card where if you have like it's an alt win con, but you need a permanent. If there are 5 colors among permanents you control, right? So, but then you have to play a 5C deck, and that's not cool. But now the mech is 5 colors, right? So it triggers Happily Ever After.
So your mono white deck can Happily Ever After.
Does it work?
Wait, no. Doesn't Happily Ever After? Okay, so if there are 5 colors among permanents you control, there are 6 or more card types among permanents you control and or in your graveyard.
Yeah,
and your life total is greater than or equal to your starting life total.
Good thing this is a 10/10 lifelink. Okay. Yeah.
That sounds like a combo, quote unquote. But yeah, it does work. This is it.
This is it. This is it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this to play like literal Voltron here, and then I can play Happily Ever After as well.
And you can even do it at instant speed. So you can wait until your opponent's end step so you don't get blown out, and then flip it around and win on your upkeep.
In worst case, you get 4 Sky Scanner triggers when
Sky Scanner, Panharmonicon, Solemn Simulacrum. Got him.
Oh my goodness. I'm so casual now. Like, look at all the keywords on this.
Richard's gonna be killing his own Mecha Titan just to get back his Sky Scanner and draw a card.
Yeah, that can't be the value. That's not that's not the value you think it is.
There's got to be. Oh, they need to make an artifact creature that adds mana when it enters the battlefield, so you can somehow loop this infinitely.
Ooh, although Mech Titan core does stay exiled, right? It does.
Oh, you have to get rid of the core to put together the gun.
Yeah, you get all your other stuff back, but the core itself stays gone.
Well, Wizards had to make this card balanced somehow, so you know.
Yeah, it would have been too broken. Would have been too broken.
All right, Seth, I expect a standard against the odds here. I don't know how we can make this a standard, but this has got to be a thing.
It's on the top. It's on the top of my list for against the odds. It is going to be one of the first cards we play, I think, as soon as we get this out, because boy, it seems so sweet.
All right, so those are all the previews we want to talk about. So Wizards released like so many cards, so you can check them out at MTGPreviews.com. There are so many more mythics and rares we couldn't get to because Wizards decided to drop them all at once. So check them out. But you can see the rest of all the cycles we were talking about. You can see the new channel cards and the new sagas and whatnot. So a ton of cards at mtgpreviews.com.
And I think that brings us to the end of episode 366 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So no time for fish mail this week, but Richard, if people want to send in questions for next week, where should they send them?
All right, you can send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions next week when spoilers die down a bit.
Yeah, so thanks so much for listening, everyone. Thanks to Richard and Crib for hanging out. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk more spoilers and whatever else goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, enjoy spoilers, everyone. And this is the crew signing out.